Greetings and welcome to Music Magus. My name is Alistair James Campbell. I'm a guitar player based in Wellington, New Zealand. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about playing rhythm changes, some strategies to deal with this essential tune in the jazz repertoire. If that's something you're interested in, please stick around. Essential jazz musician fuel. When I first got into playing jazz guitar as a teenager, very quickly I became aware of the existence of this thing called rhythm changes. It was made out to be some kind of difficult song to play. Only the most fearless jazz musicians could take on this beast and come out on top. Now, there are some reasons why I think that might be the case. Often rhythm changes is played at quite a pace. As I've mentioned lots of times on the Music Magus channel, I'm convinced that thinking of something as being hard is setting yourself up to failure. So I like to think of these things as challenges. A challenge to me sounds like something that might be enjoyable and rewarding to overcome. The subconscious mind has such a huge part to play in the learning of music and in fact any skill. So we want to feed our subconscious with positive reinforcement, not negative. Often when we see a lead sheet of a rhythm changes song, we'll see a lot of chords in there. I often like to look at things in the key of C, but today we're going to do this in the key of B flat. And the reason being, quite simply, is that probably 80 or 90% of the times that you'll play rhythm changes, it will be in the key of B flat. So whilst I think it's good to play rhythm changes in every key, in fact, Charlie Parker once said that the way he learned to play was to learn the rhythm changes, the blues, and Cherokee in every key. And so if it worked for Charlie Parker, maybe there's a good chance it might work for us too. But if we're in the key of B flat, often you'll see this run of chords. So you'll have B flat, G7, C minor, F7, and again B flat, G7, C minor, F7. And then in the second half of the A, we often have F minor 7 to B flat 7 to an E flat chord, and after that often you'll see an A flat 7 chord, and then back to B flat. And there's various versions of this. It's actually an advantage if you're trying to make a bass line to have more chords to aim for. So a bass line might go that wasn't the greatest bass line of all time, but you get the idea. We can basically target the root notes or the fifths of each of these chords and build our bass line around that. As a soloist, having so many chords to dance around is probably a disadvantage. So the way that I prefer to think of the rhythm changes to start with is, let's just get rid of all the chords in the A sections, and we could basically think of it as just being in the key of B flat. So if I start my loop again, I could play around B flat major scale. Obviously in certain places I'm going to avoid notes that might clash, but I'm thinking more, I guess, major pentatonic, but with with the additional notes from the major scale. Right, and then we're at the bridge. So that would be one really simple way. And obviously we can play the blues over the whole A section as well. So we're basically just thinking of it as B flat blanket blues scale. So that would sound something like this. I really struggled with the idea of how players could play melodically and still be hitting all these changes. And much later I realized that maybe they weren't actually trying to play the changes there at all, that they were just thinking in a key and thinking melodically. So if the chords are being played underneath and the bass line has been played, then there's no need in the solo for you to actually have to outline it. If you're playing unaccompanied, maybe there's more need for you to outline the sound of the changes, but if they're all been taken care of, then you're kind of free to do whatever you like over the top. So a good jazz solo might have areas where you're playing blanket scale, areas where you're just thinking in a bluesy way, and areas where you're actually playing through the changes more. Hey there, if you're enjoying this lesson, please take a moment to click the like button, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. What are your thoughts on playing the rhythm changes? The next step above just the blanket scale is really just to think of the 5 and the 1. So that would look something like this. So you'd have B flat for a bar, and then the 5, F for a bar, B flat for a bar, and then the 5 for a bar, and then we go straight to B flat 7, and then you could just think of this next bar as just being E flat, and then back to the 1, and then to the 5, and then to the second A. So if I was to think more like that and do a solo, it would sound something like this. So F, B flat, and then E flat there, back to 1. I think there's a lot to be said for not trying to play in time when you're trying to learn this sort of stuff. Give your ear time to hear these sounds. B flat, F, B flat, F, B flat 7, E flat, and then back to B flat. When we get to the bridge, often you'll see these 2 5s written. So A minor, D7, D minor, G7, G minor, C7, C minor, and F7. Now that's great, but we can think of it in 2 ways. We could basically take away the 2 chords and just think of D7 for 2 bars, G7 for 2 bars, C7 for 2 bars, and F7 for 2 bars, back to B flat. Or we could also think in this gives a more open sound, a more sus sound. A minor for 2 bars, D minor for 2 bars, G minor for 2 bars, and then C minor for 2 bars, often with a quick F7 back to the B flat. So that would sound something like this. So D7, G7, C7, and then F7 back to B flat. Or with the minor version, so as always, my approach these days is to create the most simplest foundation and work from there. So we're looking at key centers, then we're looking at adding in ones and fives, and the relationship between the tonic and dominant, between the tension and the release. And then we can add in all sorts of other stuff later. There's many things that we can do with the rhythm changes, and you can find books that have all these alternate changes with all the tritone substitutions, but I'm convinced that trying to learn it that way is not the best approach. And we basically start with the framework, and then we learn these concepts such as a tritone substitution and learn how to apply them to the basic frameworks that we've created. So that's some basic approaches to tackling the rhythm changes. I hope that helps you in your journey to master this common jazz song. And as always, thank you very much for tuning in to Music Magus. We will see you very soon in another lesson. Ciao.